Ilara, a woman whose ambition burned as fiercely as her love, found herself tethered to the shifting tides of Liam's affection. He was a man perpetually caught between the relentless demands of his burgeoning career and the quiet solace of their shared life. For Ilara, this dynamic stirred a primal fear, a deep-seated terror of abandonment that had burrowed into her soul years ago, born from a painful family betrayal that still echoed in her quiet moments. She loved Liam with an intensity that often bordered on desperation, an emotion she fought to suppress, yet it pulsed beneath her calm exterior like a restless drum. Lately, the flame between them, once so vibrant, had begun to flicker precariously. Liam's work consumed him, his late nights at the office stretching into early mornings, leaving Ilara to navigate their once bustling apartment in a growing silence. His distance fueled her insecurity, each unanswered call, each postponed dinner, chipping away at her fragile confidence. She saw the subtle signs, the quiet glances, the hushed conversations, and the way Serena, a colleague of Liam's, seemed to orbit him with an almost predatory grace at company functions. The unspoken rivalry was a cold knot in Ilara's stomach, twisting tighter with every passing day. One afternoon, a hushed conversation drifted from a nearby cafe table, snagging Ilara's attention. Two women spoke in low tones of ancient love charms, whispered remedies for fading affections, and potent spells to bind a lover's heart. The words, once dismissed as mere folklore, now resonated with an unsettling allure. They spoke of Mara, an old woman dwelling in the city's forgotten corners, legendary for her arcane knowledge. A tremor of unease ran through Ilara, a conflict brewing between her ingrained morality and the raw, desperate yearning to secure Liam's love, to extinguish the gnawing fear of losing him forever. Driven by a desperate impulse, Ilara sought out Mara. The shop was a relic, tucked away down a cobblestone alley, its facade cloaked in shadow and ancient ivy. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of dried herbs and forgotten dust. Mara, her eyes like chips of obsidian, observed Ilara with an unnerving stillness. She listened to Ilara's plea, her voice a low, gravelly current, then spoke of the charm's unpredictable nature, its potential cost, a price far greater than gold. But Ilara, blinded by the twin forces of fear and love, heard only the promise of Liam's return. She agreed to the ritual, dismissing Mara's cryptic warnings as the ramblings of an eccentric old woman, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and a strange, unfamiliar dread. The days that followed were a blur of anxious anticipation. Then, subtly at first, Liam began to change. His distance melted away, replaced by a renewed interest in Ilara, an almost fervent attention. His affection, however, felt different, more intense, bordering on obsessive. It was unsettling, this sudden, overwhelming devotion. He would gaze at her with an intensity that made her skin prickle, his usual warmth replaced by something colder, almost possessive. One evening, as he spoke of their future with an uncharacteristic fervor, Ilara noticed a strange, almost vacant look in his eyes, a flicker of something she didn't recognize, a chilling absence of the man she had loved. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The charm's grip tightened around Liam, transforming his renewed interest into an unsettling, relentless possessiveness. His affection, once a gentle embrace, now felt like a suffocating cage. He began to subtly isolate Ilara, weaving a delicate but sturdy web of manipulation that slowly detached her from her friends and even her own family. Calls went unanswered. Invitations politely declined on her behalf, always with a plausible excuse, always with Liam by her side, his gaze unwavering, almost demanding. The love she had so desperately craved, the devotion she had sought to ignite, had become a heavy, inescapable burden. Ilara found herself longing for the very distance that had once plagued her, for the quiet moments she now realized were filled with her own thoughts, her own choices. A creeping unease settled deep within her, a cold dread that gnawed at the edges of her relief. Liam, once so vibrant and independent, now moved through life with an almost programmed focus on her. His decisions seemingly filtered through the singular lens of Ilara's presence. She started to witness erratic behaviors, small deviations from his former self that, taken individually, might have been dismissed, but together painted a disconcerting picture. A sudden unfounded jealousy over a casual remark from a colleague, an uncharacteristic outburst when her attention strayed even momentarily, a vacant stare that lingered a moment too long after she spoke. These moments were jarring, stark reminders of Mara's earlier warnings, those cryptic pronouncements about the charm's unpredictable nature and its hidden costs. Ilara had brushed them aside then, blinded by desperation, but now they echoed in her mind, chilling her to the bone. The seeds of doubt blossomed into a thorny thicket after a chance encounter with Serena. Ilara, venturing out alone for a rare moment of respite, found herself face to face with Liam's colleague. Serena, her expression etched with genuine concern, spoke of Liam's recent odd behavior at work, his uncharacteristic mood swings, his sudden disinterest in projects he once championed. She spoke of a shift, a fundamental change in his demeanor that had left everyone puzzled. Serena's words, coupled with Ilara's own observations, confirmed her deepest fears. This was not Liam. This was something else. Something born of the charm, a twisted imitation of the man she loved. The true, horrifying betrayal revealed itself in a dusty box of old keepsakes. Driven by a desperate need for answers, Ilara searched through Liam's belongings, a pang of guilt battling with an overwhelming sense of urgency. Tucked beneath old photographs and forgotten mementos, she discovered a stack of letters, their edges softened by time. They were from Liam, addressed to Serena, penned months before Ilara had sought Mara's aid. The words were tender, hopeful, filled with an easy intimacy that spoke of a burgeoning, genuine connection, a gentle affection that had been allowed to blossom naturally. The charm hadn't created love. It had brutally intercepted and redirected a nascent, authentic bond, twisting it into a grotesque caricature. Ilara's heart seized with a profound, sickening realization. The charm hadn't secured Liam's heart. It had shattered not only his, but Serena's, and ultimately her own. The true extent of her selfish act, the irreparable damage it had wrought, crashed down upon her with the force of a tidal wave. Overwhelmed by a suffocating wave of guilt and fear, Ilara knew she had only one recourse. She returned to Mara's secluded shop, the scent of dried herbs now clinging to the air like a heavy shroud. Mara, her ancient eyes seeming to pierce Ilara's very soul, listened with a grim, knowing silence. When Ilara finished, Mara confirmed her worst fears. The charm's effects were not only devastating, but, in their direct impact, irreversible. The spiritual price had been paid, a fragment of Liam's true self sacrificed at the altar of Ilara's desperation. Yet, in the depths of despair, Mara offered a sliver of hope, a glimmer in the encroaching darkness, a ritual of redemption. It would demand immense personal sacrifice, a price that would test Ilara's resolve to its very core. Mara's voice, raspy with age and ancient knowledge, explained the harrowing path ahead. The ritual would involve confronting the charm's dark, clinging energy, a battle not just against an external force, but against the very consequences of her own actions. It would require Ilara to accept the full weight of what she had done, to face the distortion she had unleashed. She would have to choose her own safety, her own comfort, or the faint possibility of restoring Liam's true self, however fractured. The choice was agonizing, a crucible of self-recrimination. Then Mara delivered the final, chilling revelation. The ritual demanded more than just courage or remorse. It required Ilara to surrender something deeply personal, a piece of her own essence, a fragment of her being, to break the charm's insidious hold. The true cost of redemption was yet to be fully understood, but it promised to be profound. The air in Mara's shop grew heavy, thick with the scent of burning herbs and the weight of Ilara's impending sacrifice. Guided by Mara's unflinching gaze and cryptic instructions, Ilara began the harrowing ritual of unbinding. She sat cross-legged on a woven mat, surrounded by flickering candles, their tiny flames dancing eerily in the gloom. Mara chanted in a language Ilara didn't understand, her voice a low, resonant hum that vibrated through Ilara's very bones. As the ritual deepened, Ilara closed her eyes, and visions, sharp and agonizing, began to unfold within her mind. She saw Liam, not as the obsessive shadow he had become, but as the vibrant, laughing man she had once known, his image now distorted, his spirit caged. She witnessed her own betrayal, the moment she had chosen desperation over integrity, the selfish act that had irrevocably altered their lives. Each vision was a searing brand, each memory a fresh torment, forcing her to confront the profound suffering she had inflicted. The charm's dark energy, a palpable force, fought back with a vengeance. It manifested as whispers of doubt, echoes of her past fears, tempting her to abandon the painful path she had chosen. It tried to convince her that Liam was better off, that her sacrifice was futile, that she deserved any love, however twisted she could claim. Yet, Ilara held firm, her resolve forged in the crucible of guilt and a newfound understanding of true love's nature. She pushed through the resistance, envisioning the release, the freedom, the return of the man she had so selfishly bound. The final act of surrender was excruciating, a tearing sensation within her very core, a piece of her essence offered to the ancient forces Mara invoked. Then, with a final shuddering breath, the oppressive weight lifted. The candles flared once, then dimmed, and silence descended. Liam, found later that evening wandering near his apartment, was a ghost of his former self. The charm had broken, releasing him from its insidious thrall, but the aftermath was a profound confusion. He was disoriented, his memories fragmented, a deep sense of loss clinging to him like a shroud. The intense, obsessive focus on Ilara had vanished, replaced by a bewildering void. He remembered flashes of their life together, but they were tainted, almost unreal. More poignantly, he recalled the nascent, genuine feelings he had nurtured for Serena, a connection now irrevocably damaged, perhaps beyond repair. He felt a profound sense of having lost something vital, something he couldn't quite name. Days later, Ilara approached him, her heart heavy with the truth. She confessed everything, her voice thick with remorse, accepting full responsibility for her actions. She laid bare her fears, her desperation, and the terrible choice she had made. Liam listened, his expression a complex mix of hurt, betrayal, and a dawning understanding. The anger was there, raw and undeniable, but beneath it he saw Ilara's genuine remorse, her profound suffering, and the immense sacrifice she had made to untangle the web she had woven. He chose to forgive her, not out of renewed love, for that was gone, perhaps forever, but out of understanding, a shared trauma, and a recognition of her profound act of redemption. Their paths, he knew, could no longer intertwine as they once had, but a new, fragile bridge of respect had been built between them. With the charm's echoes fading, Ilara dedicated herself to a new purpose. The experience had been a brutal teacher, but she emerged from it with a profound wisdom. She began to help others, offering guidance to those teetering on the precipice of similar desperate choices, using her own story as a cautionary tale. She spoke of the true nature of love, its fragility, its reliance on free will, and the devastating consequences of attempting to manipulate it. She found a new, deeper meaning in understanding and respecting the intricate dance of human connection, a happiness rooted not in possession, but in genuine understanding and empathy. Liam, meanwhile, slowly began to rebuild his life. The scars of the charm remained, subtle but ever present, a constant reminder of what had been lost. Yet he found a quiet peace in moving forward, in rediscovering his own identity, independent of forced affection. Ilara and Liam eventually parted ways, forever changed, but bound by a mutual respect born from shared pain and ultimate forgiveness. Ilara had learned that true love could not be forced or manipulated. It had to be freely given, nurtured with trust, and respected in its autonomy. Years later, Ilara, now a mentor with a calm, knowing gaze, sat opposite a young woman, her eyes wide with a familiar desperation, whispering about a love charm. Ilara listened patiently, her heart aching with empathy, then began to share her story, offering wisdom and a path to genuine happiness, not through magic, but through self-love, respect for others, and the courage to let true love find its own way.